You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
We have reached the penultimate game of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season. Hard to believe it. It's Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. What's going on, Rosie?
Hey, Nicky Bobby. Hi, YouTube chat. It's been a little while, it seems like.
It has. Looking forward to the beginning of the Stanley Cup Playoffs on Saturday. It's sort of funny. I was thinking in prepping this show that a year ago, I think we knew for like 3.5 months who the Maple Leafs were playing in the first round. It was Tampa by like January 15th. This year, it's a lot different. Tonight, we're going to find out who the Leafs are playing in the first round.
It is kind of wild. I mean, we probably jumped the gun and just assumed too much, but it seemed like done deals like multiple times. And I mean, the fact that it's not necessarily or guaranteed to be Florida, I'm kind of surprised by. But yeah, it makes it for some more interesting action tonight, at least at this time of year.
Well, firstly, Monday night was nuts. I don't know how to feel about the Eastern Conference playoff race because there's been 4 or 5 teams attached to the hip of those 2 playoff spots. Credit to Tampa for pulling ahead and saying, hey, we're not doing this. But the Philly spot was open in the Metro. Obviously, the Islanders seized that opportunity, clinched a playoff spot the other day. But I don't know what to make of it because it's like a lot of teams like hobble their way to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I like the fact, I will say, I like the fact that we're down to the final couple days and we're still awaiting, big time results, right? The scoreboard watching commenced about a month ago, but I don't know how to feel about the playoff race. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I just want it to be settled. I don't know. I've never been a big standings watcher and kind of crunching numbers. And well, if this happens, I'm always just like, just see what happens. Like, I don't care to start crunching numbers. Big numbers guy is not really what I am. And I just kind of like, let me know when it's ready to rock so I can analyze it from there. But I do like the idea that a lot of these teams are, into meaningful games coming down the stretch and into the playoffs. I always thought that was advantageous to be playing meaningful hockey. It's very difficult. It's like having a bye in certain formats where you don't play and then you come out and you kind of get stunned because you lose your mojo and you kind of lose your traction and you kind of get out of your routine and the competitive spirit. And then you try to just pick it up while the other guys are firing on all cylinders. It makes it difficult, but I've always thought it was, people love resting and getting the blow and getting, some well-needed rest and some practice time and days off. And that's all great. And I get it, but it's very easy for a team, especially a hockey team where it's so conducive on everyone being on the same page. It's hard to get back on that sometimes. And a lot of like top seeded teams can get stunned by taking too much time off, basically.
We make everything about the Leafs, and rightfully so, because this is a Leafs generated podcast and centric podcast, I should say. It just even the teams scratching and clawing to get in the playoffs. The Washington Capitals, the Leafs dummied them a couple times over the last couple months. The Pittsburgh Penguins, the Leafs had them dead to rights, but they pick up the point. It's funny how like it comes full circle. Even the Islanders had their way with the Maple Leafs this season. It's amazing, like the swing there could be in the standings over a couple points. And if you do recall last year at this time, the whole Florida game that I always like to bring up on this podcast, where Florida was finished and they go on an epic run. And then it continued into the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, like, I'm intrigued to have that conversation when it does come playoff time. If any of these teams are still alive, like we all expect a magical run. It's been a theme the last couple of years, no?
Yeah, it's cool when that happens. I mean, we look at the Leafs a little heavy and I don't pay too much attention to a lot of the stuff going on. But when you do take a peek, you're like, if teams start to fire it up here in these last few weeks and find something and just get rolling, which is what everyone's trying to do. But, desperation kind of breeds that. And if you're in a position where, you've got, a good enough team, you've kind of underachieved, probably ran into a bunch of injury troubles, goaltender injuries, this thing, and in your stat line doesn't really tell the story on your team, and you can find it the last couple of weeks and just start steamrolling it into it. You can have those Cinderella stories and those fairy tale seasons in the postseason like Florida did last year. So it is kind of fun to look down and say, who's making some noise coming down, the back stretch where no one's really paying attention. A team you didn't really have your eye on can maybe actually come in and have some upsets and make some noise in the first round and get to the second, and then who knows from there.
The Montreal Canadiens went full Taco Bell diarrhea on Monday. They're up 4-2 with 10 minutes left in Detroit. I love that scene, by the way. It's kind of chaotic. It's crazy. The Red Wings playing for their lives. What a keep by Shane Gostisbehere on the blue line. They tie the game. Raymond wins it in OT. Just a lot of huge plays. Detroit, of course, coming into Toronto on Saturday, winning that game. They got Montreal again. So, like, I love the chaos that ensues when it's not my team playing in those games. Could only wonder what it's like for those fan bases. I mean, you've been on the record time and time again on this podcast. You would love a change to the playoff format. So I ask you, piggybacking off the NBA, should the NHL adopt play-in games?
Yeah, I just kind of was looking at some tweets about that yesterday, and they're yours actually. It would be pretty interesting. It's kind of weird. Like you look at baseball and they play like 160 plus games, and it is this long grind of a season where it's odd to watch because each game doesn't really mean that much. You know, a team can get absolutely shelled 10-1 and they're still like, hey, how you doing? Like, no worries, because it's not that every game isn't live and die. Like, it might be in other sports, but then to have that one play in game, like it's crazy to me. But it sure makes for some good entertainment and for some, some high pressure drama and whatnot. I wouldn't mind it. I'm kind of more just like the 1-8 thing. And I know they've done that before and it has its issues, but just a bit of a mix up. I don't mind because, the playoff format is not sacred. I mean, I'm all about, I'm a what do you call it? A traditionalist,
Yeah.
especially like, with golf, like you just don't mess with it. It's too ancient. It's too ingrained. I don't like dicking around with it too much. But with hockey in the playoffs, they've messed around with the playoffs forever. I mean, you go back to some of the Stanley Cups that have won, they're completely different format. 2-and-3 series to win it. It's different. So to mess around with it, I don't think it's sacrilege or anything like that. I don't mind trying some different things now and then.
Now, here's the big question du jour for you: Florida or Boston? Because again, it's pretty crazy. It's coming down to the final game of the season for these teams to decide who plays the Toronto Maple Leafs. Laid out for you pretty easily. If Boston loses and Florida wins this game against the Maple Leafs, it'll be the Leafs and the Bees in the first round. The Bees pick up a point. They got the tiebreaker. I think they just got to pick up 1 point. They're going to move on. They're going to take on Tampa, and it's going to be Florida and Toronto. Do you have a preference on who the Leafs could play?
I don't have an immediate preference. No, I mean, if you look at recency bias, we've done well against Florida in some league games here in the last month and a half or whatever, and the glaring moment of the last of the 2024 since the new year has been the shellacking that the Leafs took against the Bruins. Joseph Woll was thrown into that situation. I didn't agree with. He was super inexperienced on the season from an injury standpoint. He got one game against the Coyotes and then got tossed against the Bees back to back. I understand trying to get him a big win under his belt and get him going, but that was just a rough one. And I don't know if the Bruins kind of have the Leafs number, and there's a mental aspect to that, which I'm not in love with. But I also think that the Florida Panthers are absolutely built for the playoffs. So an instant preference is not jumping out to me by any stretch. I think they're both very difficult opponents. I don't think there's any cheering bring on either one of them from any of the fan base, or they'd be ridiculous to do so. It's a tough opponent, and both of them are going to be a real test. And I do believe the Toronto Maple Leafs have a better team this year, more suited for the playoffs. I think they can beat either one of those teams in a 7-game series. I just do not think it's going to be easy with either of them. So they have to test their mettle against a good team no matter what. And all I'm thinking about is whoever it is, it's going to be tough. You got to bring your best and you got to show up. You got to have goaltending. The defense got to be solid. Your big boys got to score. It's all got to happen. And regardless of who is on the other side, those things have to happen or they just don't have a chance.
We have conspiracy theorists in this market, including producer Vic, who suggests that Boston's losing on purpose to get the Maple Leafs. Just too much has to go that way for it to be the Bruins and the Leafs. I'm with you. I think either way, any way you slice it, you're going to be exercising some demons, or at least attempting to do so in round one, whether it's Florida, what transpired last year, or whether it's the Boston Bruins, what's transpired, say, I don't know, like the last 15 years, dating back to when you were a Toronto Maple Leaf, quite frankly. So, anyway, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's going to be a tough opponent. Both teams have pros and cons, but certainly two well-coached teams, two really good hockey clubs. But let's not forget that the Leafs think they're a really good hockey club too, and at least we think they're a really good hockey club. So I don't really think it should matter who they play, because I think we've seen time and time again they can beat any opponent on any given night, right?
Yeah, I agree. And if you beat one of those teams in the first round and you play a solid series and you just convincingly win it, say in 5 or 6 games, I mean, that to me is going to be a statement, and it's pretty early to be making a statement like that. It usually doesn't happen. Hence the reason I kind of would like to, ease into it a little bit more and give some underdogs, a chance to make their medal and kind of have a convergence of the top teams, later in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But you get it right out of the bat with this format, which whatever it is, what it is. But if you beat one of those teams as the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think everything, like their toughest test is going to be right out of the gate. And if they can show that they have it and can access their best hockey, play playoff hockey, beat those quality teams in the Boston Bruins or the Florida Panthers, I mean, if they can do that, then the sky is the limit. And I really think that, with this format, one of the biggest tests they will face is that first round opponent. I know they did it last year, but I don't think they particularly played that well in the first round. They happened to get by Tampa, but this year with one of those just monster teams and playoff success, although the Bruins last year, but they're just a monster team. Let's just not split hairs. You can get by one of those. I just think that their confidence and their ability to go deep this year will be sky high, but you have to get over that first hump first.
To be the best, you got to beat the best, the old Ric Flair quote. And certainly, I think no team is in a position where they should pick their opponent. I think respect your opponent. That's rule number one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So we'll find out tonight on this Tuesday night who the Toronto Maple Leafs will play in round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. By the way, it sounds like they'll start Saturday, Monday for games 1 and 2, and 8 Eastern start time expected for Saturday night, whether it's in Florida or Boston. So watch out for that. There's been rumors as well of 2 off days in between game 2 and 3 heading to Toronto for that series. So it'll be intriguing to see when the slate comes out. But I know I'll be at Greta Bar YYZ, which opens April 26th. So Friday, April 26th, Greta Bar YYZ opening its doors. We've been teasing this for a long period of time. Finally happening deep in the heart of King Street West in downtown Toronto. Greta Bar will act as your go-to spot for all the hockey playoffs and baseball coverage you can handle, whether you're pre-gaming, looking to watch the big game, post-gaming, or just looking to dust your friends off at some arcade games. Greta Bar YYZ will have you covered with delicious eats and thirst-quenching drinks. Go big, go to Greta Bar YYZ. Looking forward to that, and also looking forward to getting my Bleed Blue shirt. It's on its way. The playoffs are near, and we are ready to bleed blue here at the Leafs Nation. Nation Gear is ready to gear you up for Toronto's playoff run. Rep your favorite team as they battle for the cup. Shop the exclusive Bleed Blue playoff tee and more at nationgear.ca. Rosie, I can't believe it. What's the lead up every year? I say every year. We've done this podcast twice. We look forward. I say the regular season doesn't matter. I can't believe we're almost there to that pinnacle, man.
It is crazy, man. I'm thinking this Saturday already, like, what? That kind of crept up on me. I just kind of reserved the thought that it's just going to drag on forever. And these, not boring, but just kind of not my favorite time of the season is dragging on. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, baby, it's right here. And, that Greta thing, like, how smart is that to open at this time of the year? Playoffs for the Maple Leafs with some pretty exciting time in their franchise's history to go into that place and then get some good juju, maybe win the first round, then go back to that place. Not dumb, those guys. They're not dumb. I wish I was there. Maybe I
looking forward to it. We're gonna have a team party there with the Leafs Nation, I believe, next week. Some of our familiar faces will be there in attendance for that, so looking forward to that. I should tell you all as well to visit the Leafs Nation 401 here on YouTube, which you are right now if you're watching in video form at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, which many of you already have. And don't forget to visit the LeafsNation.com for the very latest. I write on that. I actually wrote an article earlier today about not getting too up in arms about the injury concerns this time of year. It's more precautionary than anything. We'll get into some of those injuries coming up. Producer Vic writes on that website. And the rest of the team over there at the Leafs Nation do a fantastic job on a daily basis, especially now this time of year. It's a juice time, man. This is what we play for. This is what we do this podcast for, the Stanley Cup playoffs. To begin in earnest coming up on Saturday, 420. I love that day. We still joke about that. Maybe just shows our age here on this podcast. I think we're the only people, like me and Huts had this convo, and you and I as well. 420 and 69, you'll always get a smile out of my face, man.
Shows the maturity levels. I wonder if anybody
Thank you.
even knows what 420 means, but this day and age in Canada, it's becoming pretty commonplace. So, hey, rock and roll, baby.
Every day is 420 in Canada. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off of the $10 in value and zero delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app. Enter code NATION25. It's code NATION25. All in uppercase, 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada. Subject to change. Terms apply. So let's go over the news and notes first and foremost. What's your level of concern on Max Domi? I do think this is precautionary. I think you could obviously speak to this better. Players are nicked up this time of year. It's the dog days. Like, some players are smelling summer. Some are getting set for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Probably every player is dealing with something. But Max Domi played on Saturday. He looked fine. But even dating back to the Thursday game against New Jersey last week, where he gets in that fight, it almost seems too coincidental that aligns with then they come out and say, yeah, he's dealing with something. I wonder if it happened in the fight. They haven't disclosed that, but he's unlikely to play. He won't play against Florida, unlikely to play against Tampa on Wednesday either.
I know it makes you wonder what happened if it wasn't that scrap. I could see it being something in the Jersey game, and then, you know what, we're going to play and try it out. And it's like, hey, I feel like it's not something that's just going away or that I forget about while I'm playing. It's actually bothering me. Okay, let's take this week off and really hammer, the treatment and see if we can get to the point where game one, you're not feeling it anymore. It makes total sense to me. It just sucks because, like I said at the beginning of the show, coming in on all cylinders and having the juju and mojo is important. I believe these guys are ridiculously in shape athletes. They're young, they're strong, they have every reason and every resource to have their body not be breaking down on them as far as energy levels and whatnot. So as far as, oh, we need to rest and we need to rest, shut up. You don't need to rest anybody. This guy's good to go. He could play 3-3 and he's ready to rock on the 5th day to play. He's fine. So I don't like the rest option. I don't mind, I understand like trying not to get Auston Matthews hurt during one of these games. But as far as resting a guy like Max Domi, I just don't see it at all. I think it's bullshit. But the fact that he's got something bugging him and ailing him, I get, getting the treatment on him and not aggravating something. But I don't love the idea of, holy shit, I haven't really felt my skates in a game-like sense in a week. And here comes game one. And I got to maybe figure out the first couple of I just don't love that. I love it when you're in the zone, you're in the mold, and you're ready to rock. So, having these guys out, it's not the end of the world, but I would rather just have a full healthy team and just playing right into the playoffs. So not ideal, but I get it. It's not my favorite. And on the side note of that, to break up that top line, everyone's fear when that top line went guns blazing was that, will Keefe keep them together? And by game one in the playoffs, he'll pull them apart. Well, what's going to happen these next couple games with Mitch Marner being on the top line? You're going to yank him back down because guess what? Max Domi is no longer injured. Step aside, Mitch. I don't know if Keefe has the wherewithal to do that. So now all of a sudden I worry, oh, here we go. Game one, he doesn't have his fucking big line with all the chemistry going. So that's in the back of my mind saying, is that going to happen on game one, which it absolutely should. So there's a couple things going on that aren't ideal, but at the end of the day, these are the ups and downs that a team like this has to overcome.
Yeah, that definitely throws a wrench into the game one plans, right? Because I think you're so right. Like, let's say Marner assists on Matthews' 70th goal, whether it's on Tuesday or Wednesday. It's like, how do you pull those guys apart? What if they're gelling? What if they combine for 5 or 6 points over the last couple games? And that's why I don't envy the position of head coach in this league, specifically the job of Sheldon Keefe. But I would think that if Max Domi was good enough to go, he would go. And maybe it just speaks volumes to this day and age of 2024. Because, if you asked me 5 years ago, I couldn't agree more. Like, I don't understand this whole thing about rest and then load management. But then I saw the Raptors win an NBA title and the way they handled Kawhi Leonard. And I'm like, you know what? You got the best version of Kawhi Leonard when it mattered most. I know the NBA is a lot different. I know that they've changed their rules a bit to, cater to the crowd a bit more. People are paying their hard-earned money to go watch the games. But I think any way you can get that upper hand, I'm good with it. I think we've conditioned ourselves in 2024 to coddle players. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And I think this is what it's all about right now.
Yeah, it is. And I don't take the basketball comparison as being comparable at all. I mean, there's 12 guys on a team. The top two guys are everything. You lose those top two guys in the NBA, you do not have a chance to win. Hockey is very different. I think it's much more team oriented, and I think it's extremely momentum orientated, which can carry from game to game. And I don't see it as much as basketball. I totally understand Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, rest him up so he is ready to rock. I think it's different when you're talking about skates and ice and hockey and the fast pace and the way that goes. It's different. I can't compare it to anything else when, when you're in the NHL and you're in your thick of things and you're right in your prime and you take, say, 3, 4, 5 days off and then you get back on your skates, you feel foreign, man. Like the
Yeah.
skates don't feel like they fit you. Your legs have this little weird burn. Your groins are kind of doing some things, and you need, a couple days of skates to kind of get that back. And I don't like taking that time off. And again, these guys are in such good shape. They have such incredible treatment. Their nutrition is top notch. They have every resources in the world to make their body feel 100%. I don't think playing, an extra game or two or taking that off is even that beneficial, but to each their own. I might be old school, but I don't like screwing up the chemistry and the roster and the lines at this point in the bloody season just to kind of like chuck them back together on game one and say, oh yeah, drop the puck quick. Here we are again. Like, I fucking hate that.
Man, I hear you. I've already been thinking about some spots I like to bet. The schedule's so weird this time of year. Like I was reading and hearing that, some teams could go a week without starting a game. Like the New York Rangers. Thinking right now, I probably jump on their opponent game one. It's going to be a week layoff. Like I think you bring up a good point. Like, and you would know this. I mean, you played in the NHL. Like you miss a couple days, and it feels like you haven't skated in years, right? Like maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but it feels like it takes you a couple shifts, a couple minutes to get back into the swing of things. And certainly, I prefer a team like the Maple Leafs, who, again, they're going to rest some guys the last couple games, but they're right back at it on Saturday, as opposed to like a team like the New York Rangers could have a week off. But it's interesting too. Like, and I want to see what they do on Wednesday in a meaningless game against Tampa. I think Matt Tompkins is going to go for Tampa, the third string goaltender of the Lightning. If they go to Martin Jones, all I could think about was Ilya Samsonov, the assumed game one starter, could go a week between starts, and the last two starts he's been lit up. Like it's scary stuff, especially for a goalie when you haven't faced game action in a week and then you're thrust into the Stanley Cup playoffs. That concerns me. I won't lie.
I wouldn't be against playing him in one of the games at all. Like, get him in there. I mean, like you say, it's not going to be the most high octane, insanely intense game in the world, but get him those reps, get him that sweat on, get him in the crease, get him comfortable, get his last memories not being so distant and so negative. But I do agree with that. It's concerning that, his last two outings are not ideal. They're not positive. He's not, you know, full of confidence right now just by the nature of the game and how you last performed. You're only as good as what you've done lately, and that's what he remembers, is kind of getting smoked and not feeling his best the last couple of games. Then he's going to take a week off and then just drop the puck game one. I don't love that formula. I really don't. I like playing into it. And if a meaningless game, like it's just like everyone just has a foregone conclusion. Oh, you could never play one of your goaltenders during that game against Tampa. Like, where did that come from?
I
Like,
know.
why can't you? He's a fucking hockey player. Playing hockey is going to be too crazy to do. Like, what are you talking about? Like, who said that you're going to be better by just not playing the week before the playoffs? I don't subscribe to that. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Like, oh, there's too much risk. What do you mean risk? They've been playing 82 games a year. Guys could get hurt doing anything. It's not a huge risk. I think it's a bigger risk by leaving them on the sidelines for too long and then chucking them in saying, well, hopefully you you don't just need to be playing. You got to be absolutely hyper top of your bloody game one of the playoffs. And it's so integral to have a good start to that first game, to win the first game, all those factors. And I just don't love the idea of, we're just not gonna, we're just gonna leave him be and then just kind of go back to him game one. I just don't like it.
It has become a big brain operation, not only in hockey, but baseball, like trying to do too much outside the box. Like I still lose sleep over the Blue Jays' decision to pull Jose Barrios. And I know it's a a completely different sport, but, bring it back to hockey. I was really, really mystified that Joseph Woll, why he didn't play against Detroit on Saturday. It was his game. Samsonov was coming off a shit performance, but they felt this need to put him back in there. And then they doubled down and he got lit up again. And now all of a sudden, Ilya Samsonov really wasn't a conversation a week and a half ago. And now it's like, what Samsonov are they going to get for the playoffs? I think so many times in recent memory, the Leafs have been guilty of big braining the operation. I think this is a prime example. You're so right. Like, I don't know when this happened back in the day. And I hate to say that because I'm only 34 years old. It was assumed Marty Brodeur was playing. It was assumed Curtis Joseph was playing. Jamie McLennan, who's come on this podcast time and time again, has said how it's like, it was a cozy job playing behind Mika Kiprasov. You knew you were playing 7, 8, 9 times a year, and that was it. Now it's like every game, like this guy's got to see this, he's got to see that. And again, it just speaks volumes to the era we are in where it's no longer assumed anybody's playing, quite frankly.
I know you're a goalie. What's wrong with playing goalie? I don't get it. I don't like it. And I think that maybe Keefe's been a little bit guilty, and I don't really blame him, but like trying to give a guy a bump. I think he did it with Joseph Woll in that Boston series, saying, here's a chance for you just to go and play 60 minutes. He believed in his team and trusted that they could get that win for him. Didn't happen. Okay, well, that was an anomaly. Chuck him another one there. Didn't work. And then all of a sudden you're looking back going, well, that was a nightmare like that we gave Joseph Woll. And he never really returned to like super peak high end form like we'd hoped after the injury. And I attribute it 100% to, the start he got against Boston. Like that's the two biggest losses of the year, you could argue. And it's two that are going to stick with him. It's two that started his return for him on a negative note. I don't like that. And with Sammy, I think he tried to chuck him a bone there and say, hey, here, shake that one off, get yourself going here and get a win. But the risk of that roll of the dice is that if it doesn't happen, now you double down on this guy not having his game. But listen, Samsonov's been fantastic the overwhelming majority of the time. And you just have to trust, like I say, trust this team, believe in the team. Are they your team? Is he your goalie? Have you said positive things? Has he given you, shining moments of light? Then trust him. Trust that he'll be ready and he'll feel that. Like this big bad market can't just turn on him. He'll feel the doom and gloom and, oh my God, no one thinks I'm going to be ready. Everyone thinks I'm falling off again. People are wondering if I slip back to my, early season form and if I'm toast again, if I'm going to give this away, if I'm going to ruin the season. Like, fucking settle down. He's a fantastic goalie. He's been playing fantastic. He's going to be in there and he's going to be ready. So you just got to have a little bit of faith and bleed blue.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Bob McMahon out the final 2 regular season games. And how many conversations about Nick Robertson have we had since the trade deadline alone? Well, here is another opportunity, right? It's like a continuing civil war on Leafs Twitter. Should Robertson be in there? Should he not? Again, it remains to be seen. They're being very, very mum on the diagnosis when it comes to McMahon. Lower body injury, left the game on Saturday. But he won't play in the final 2 games. But suffice it is to say, big opportunity here for Nick Robertson, who scored his 14th over the weekend.
I know that Robertson, he seems to come in and kind of be like, hey, buddy, you're not on this team. You're not in the lineup. And then he'll come in and it's be like, Jesus, can he be an asset? And it's kind of that. It's not Jekyll and Hyde, but it's just not enough consistency. But when he's good, he's really good. And when he's not really good, he's unnoticeable. And it would be nice to get a little bit more consistency at be 3/4 good or really good, and then it's kind of like, well, we're not taking this guy out of the lineup, but there's too many holes in the schedule where it's like, it's easy to pull him out. And there's other times where it's like, that's what we're talking about. That's what we need out of you. And it's just the consistency problem. But, it's an interesting time of year with the last 2 games. McMahon's been fantastic and gelling with different people at different times and maybe a little bit more consistent. I don't know whose ceiling is higher. You could argue that the potential for Robertson is higher, but it just has yet to be seen. So you throw Robertson in and say he does pretty well the last 2 games. McMahon's ready to go game 1. Again, there's another tough decision for the head coach on what to do with the lineup. And I really hate having these lineup decisions the night before game 1 of the playoffs against one of these really strong opponents. I would love it if we just had our 20 guys rocking and rolling. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's ready. You're going in the last couple of games. You play them. You do all right. You got your mojo. You drop the puck and everyone knows what to do. do, rather than having to chuck all the spare parts together and try it out for game one. I just don't like the formula. But again, not everything's in their control with these injuries and whatnot, and they're being cautious. That's fine. I just really, really hope they're ready to go for game one with the best lineup that they could possibly have.
We'll see on that front. Kelly Yarncroke, who's been unable to play for a couple weeks. Sheldon Keefe saying he's not ready to play. Of course, the upper body injury. I think it's a hand injury, but uncertain for game one. I mean, we're getting closer and closer to game one, where for me, and just speculation, I think it's unlikely we see him to start that series. Maybe later on. I think you need a couple practice days. It just doesn't seem like Yarncroke is close. But again, it just means other players have to step up throughout that lineup, right?
Yeah, I think depending on how the series goes, he will definitely be out for the first 2 games. And then maybe if they have to force him and rush him in for game 3 for some reason, could make sense. Other than that, if things are going well, I think they'll wait till, the latter part of the series, or even round 2 if they get there. So it seems like he's not really close. There's no indication that they've said where it's like, no, he might be there. We're just being cautious. It's just like
Yeah.
he's hurt and he can't play. So unless they're going to do something drastic, if the series isn't going the way they want it to, maybe they'll shove him in for, say, a game 3. But I don't see him being a big part of it early on. What about the back end, man? Like, that's always the head scratcher to me.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen on the back end?
Dude, we did a full diagnostics on TJ Brody yesterday, and sadly, I've gotten to the point where this guy's unplayable. I don't know if you saw the clip over the weekend of the OT winner for Detroit. It was like his controller disconnected. I love TJ Brody. He just can't be on my game one roster. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. I agree. It just seems like every big goal and every big, like, end of the game could go
Always
either
him.
way.
Yeah.
It's always him. It's just
Yeah.
always him. And sometimes it's like, it's not like he's scrambling. He didn't have the foot speed and he kind of got beaten. He's scrambling and he dives and swings his stick and it's not quite there and they score on him. Oh shit, TJ Brody. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Where are you? You're not even on the right side of the ice. You're just looking back. Like, you're the net front demon. You're looking back at the net front where one of their most, um, dangerous players is standing right in front of the net while they're about to make a play, and you look at him and then just keep standing in the high slot. Like, just weird stuff. Like, dude,
Yeah.
you've played hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games in the NHL. Where's your instinct as a defenseman? And it seems to be gone. Yet we're gonna have him in, and like one of the new guys we just traded for in the rafters. I don't really get it. And it's kind of one of those things that it's not a Joseph Hall incident, but it's kind of the same concept of, what do you have? Like, why are you so, like, you're the head coach of an NHL. This is not tummy sticks. This isn't everyone gets a trophy. This isn't, well, I like you, so I'm going to play you. This is do or die. This is, razor thin edges here where if you're not up to snuff, you just can't fucking play. This is the big leagues. And time again, this guy is not fit for the ice and he's playing over other guys. I don't like it. And it's kind of a foregone conclusion now, I'm guessing, that he's going to be in game 1.
How dare you bring up the name Justin Hall? I'll leave that for this answer because we're going to preview this game, and then you can give me. I'll give you my thoughts, and then you give me a rebuttal. The only thing sweeter than the taste of victory, starting your day off with a new Cinnabon pull apart from Wendy's. That said, there's no reason you can't have both now that Wendy's and Daily Faceoff Fantasy are giving you a chance to win weekly prizes all season long. And hey, even if you make a few wrong picks, at least you know heading to Wendy's right now for a $5 Cinnabon pull apart and a small coffee would be a great choice. Sign up for Daily Faceoff today, sponsored by Wendy's and the Wendy's app. And the only reason why I took a break there, because I do truly feel like this could be a potential lineup outside of the names we talked about for game 1, namely on the back end. They got Riley Labushkin, you got Benoit McCabe, you got Edmondson and Liljegren. At least this is what we saw at practice. So on the outside looking in, it was Brody, Timmins, and Giordano. Do you subscribe to that theory?
Oh, yeah. I looked at something different. It must not have been updated, but I do subscribe to that. I like that look better. I think that's as deep as we've seen this year. I think that's got the best mix of offense, physicality, defensive awareness. I don't mind that lineup at all. I thought they had Brody penciled in, and the fact that they don't, it just shows that they're seeing the same things that we are. And I would love nothing more than TJ Brody to be, the shining light on the back end, but he's just not. And it's a little bit scary to think that they've been very hesitant to put him on the back burner.
Yeah, because I think this is your final dress rehearsal. Maybe I'm overreading the whole situation, and I know some guys are out, but specifically on the back end, everybody's healthy, and the fact that Giordano isn't likely to be in there, Timmins, those are guys that we knew weren't on the outside looking in to begin with, and now you add Brody into the conversation, stemming from everything that transpired over the weekend. It leads me to believe Edmondson's healthy, which is great. Liljegren's back. He came back over the weekend, played just a shade over 20 minutes in that game. It leads me to believe this is what their expectation is for game one. Because again, on Wednesday against Tampa, you were going to have a watered down roster. So you're not going to get your best looks, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting time of year, man. I don't really understand, how you go about it the perfect way, but you're doing the best you can. And the fact that they're kind of leaning towards sanity and whatnot,
Yeah,
especially on the back
true.
end, leads me to think that it's going to be done the right way. And you have to roster the best lineup that's playing the best right now. And it's not like TJ Brody's just kind of had a hiccup the last week or something like that. It's been pretty consistently um rough for big plays, end of the game, goals that just dagger you, and it just can't happen. So I'm hoping and seeing, and now I'm starting to see as I dive in a little bit that there is, there's reason to believe they're going to have the best roster iced on game one.
So the big story, there's a couple of big stories from this game. It's like a sneaky important game for both sides for different reasons. I mentioned off the top of the show, the Florida Panthers, if they win and Boston loses, it'll be the Battle of Florida in the first round, and it'll be the Leafs and Boston. A lot has to go right. Boston hosting the Ottawa Senators in a back-to-back after falling to Washington on Monday. So no doubt I will be flicking back and forth. And the other story, of course, is Auston Matthews. I don't know if you felt the same way about Saturday's game, but I felt for the first time they were forcing the envelope a bit. And Sheldon Keefe and some of his comments after the game were really, really bizarre, calling it a distraction, played him over 3 minutes on a shift. Like he was hunting it, he was looking for it. And I think reading the tea leaves on what Sheldon Keefe was saying after the game, I think he was seeing some guys fly the zone. Like there was a lot of flybys in that game. We were texting behind the scenes. I felt the same way with guys like Marner and Nylander. And hopefully there's a switch for these guys where they're like game one of the playoffs. Okay, let's play that brand that's conducive to winning the Stanley Cup playoffs. But there's every reason to be concerned about this team defensively. But Auston Matthews, will you be playing the anytime goal tonight?
Yeah, I will, just because it's Auston Matthews and he's been that hot and he's averaging an absurd amount of goals this season. So that's fine. But I understand kind of the distraction part of it. I mean, blowing the zone and trying to get this guy as cookie and trying to make this kind of modern history is great. But at this point in the season, like, is that kind of the type of things we're instilling? Is that the kind of hockey we're playing? This is a team that has trouble playing, consistently disciplined hockey, and we're going to go about and get this guy his cookies. I mean, I wanted to get 70 as much as anybody, but I'm not huge on, abandoning the system that needs to be played and ingrained in the team right now in order to step into the playoffs and have that, right in your arsenal in order to get a guy, a magic number. So I understand why it's a bit of a distraction. I hope nothing more that he gets it right in the first period and gets it behind him. And then there's more focus to be done, team wise rather than this one individual.
Imagine Matthew scores that goal like 5 minutes in, just skates right to the bench, right to the room, and that's it for me.
Takes his
Let's hit
shit
the
off.
town and Sunrise for the night, or Fort Lauderdale for that matter. That'd be ideal. I won't lie, I was a little scared over the weekend where he crashed into the boards trying to go 5-hole to get number 70 there. Hopefully he's okay after that. I think the fact that he was back skating the next day was positive news. That was a tough, tough fall. You know what's wild too, man? If I were to tell you a month ago that Auston Matthews would pretty much be a foregone conclusion to get 70 goals with 2 games remaining, and Willie Nylander would be stuck at 97 points, 3 points away from 100, you would probably take the Nylander side. Like this guy was trucking right along. And again, this is not meant to bury Willie Nylander, but he is mired in a 9-game goalless drought, and he is paid for his production, dude. And watching the games, it has not been the same Willie Nylander the last little while. You give him the benefit of the doubt late in the season, etched in stone where they're playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, not much to play for. But it's pretty wild to me that a month ago it seemed like impossible for Matthews to get to 70, and Nylander was easier to get to 100, and here we are.
Yeah, it's funny, man. All you can do is hope that he's waiting to put his foot on the pedal in the playoffs when it matters. He seems to be good to you look at the beginning of the season, he had kind of this contract thing going on and he had to prove himself, and he bet on himself and needed to put rubber on the pavement when it mattered, and he did, and he earned that big contract by playing absolutely lights out when he had to. So whatever it is that makes him capable of doing that, he needs to 100% channel in the exact same way in the playoffs, because 100 points doesn't really matter. He's got his contract, blah, blah, blah. He's a little bit slumpy right now. Maybe he's saving it. He is kind of the guy that can, let his foot off the pedal and kind of take a few deep breaths and then put his foot back on the pedal. And I just, all I can say is I hope he's doing that right now, because, yeah, having him in a slump when it matters is just too reminiscent of too many seasons before this where the big boys don't show up when it matters. And that certainly hasn't happened yet, but you hope he's ready to drop the hammer here on game one.
It's weird because it sort of aligns with the new lineup, right? And the fact that Nylander is on your third line. So maybe that changes now, obviously, with some of the injuries. It's going to be Nyes, Tavares, and Nylander on line two. Those are the expectations for the lines tonight. Bertuzzi, Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Tavares, Nylander, Robertson, Holmberg, Gregor, Dewar, Kampf, and Reeves on the fourth line. So Mr. P-Mail Bacon in the chat is prognosticating a big night for Willie to get to 100 points. Let's not forget, Mitch Marner has never got to 100. He's been to 99 before.
I know. What's Mitchie at right now? Sorry?
Mitch is not getting there, but I'm saying Nylander could put himself in elite territory. It is hard for players on this team to get to 100 points, and I thought
100%.
he was there.
He could put himself above anything that Marner's done for this Leafs, which is saying something, no question. And maybe that's been on his mind a little bit and kind of got him a little bit hamstrung and overthinking things. But it's great, and I hope he breaks out and has a 3-point night, no question. It's just I don't really fucking care. I don't care who has more points, Nylander or Marner. I don't care. I think it's special what Auston is doing. I want him to get 70, especially because he's 1 away. If he was 3 away with 2 games left, I'd be like, forget it. Like, let's focus on the things. But he scores too many goals to not get 1 in the last 2. Yeah. But I just want to see them all ripping, and I just want to see them all given, the right kind of efforts towards, playoff style of hockey, which they can garner success playing that way. They've shown it and proved it, and it's not going to stifle their creativity or their skill. It's important to play the right way. And the one thing that kind of scares me with these last 2 is like, don't play like a bunch of idiots trying to get Auston his 70th or get these milestones. Don't, because it's too hard to get back on track. So that's the one thing that scares me. But, as far as Nylander getting it, I don't know. He seems like he's not totally, firing all cylinders right now where Matthews is. So I can imagine he gets 70. But as far as Nylander getting 100, I mean, I could take it or leave it, whatever. I hope he finds his game and does it great.
I just want them to use it against Mitch Marner negotiations to say, hey, we paid Nylander that money. There's no way you're getting a penny more than this guy. But unfortunately, could be headed the other direction. And I know some people in the chat have directed us that Mitch Marner is averaging over 100 points, prorated over 82. Again, he missed some time due to injury. I get that. But that negotiation this summer is going to be mighty intriguing. Joseph Woll is going to get the start. Hasn't played in a week. Beat New Jersey last week. So looking forward to that. I'd love you to, peel back the curtain. Like, you're Ryan Reeves, you're playing a potential round 1 opponent. How would you attack this game? Like, if you're Revo, are you looking for a fight? Are you playing physical? Like, that's my intrigue with these last 2 games, specifically this one, because you could in fact play Florida as early as Saturday night, game 1 in the same building you're going to play tonight. Do you expect that the desperation, the urgency, all that stuff to be there with the Maple Leafs, considering this could be their round 1 opponent? Like, how would you attack the game?
I think you should. And like a Ryan Reeves absolutely should. I mean, your number one thing isn't, I'm going to send a message. Like, everyone knows Ryan Reeves is tough and he's not going to take any shit, but play a playoff style opponent. Let them know that, oh yeah, this does feel a little different than last year. Chip that puck deep and friggin' skate, chase those D-men down, scare them, make them panic, make them unload the puck, make them unload their problems on their partner and their wingers, finish every check, stand tall at every whistle. Like, where are you going? Out of the way of our goaltender, of our stars, of our everything. Like, just take no shit, work your bag off, be very simple, be very smart, no turnovers, nothing fancy. Do your job the way you're going to do it in the playoffs. And that goes for everybody. But, you're not out there to oh, hear me roar, look at us now. You're not doing that, but play the right way and let these guys, just let your play show these Panther guys that this is a little different roster going on. They've made some changes, and it's not going to be the same type of series that it was last year. And just play strong and play hard. Absolutely. It's not like, oh, this team doesn't matter. Maybe we'll just pussyfoot around for a while and do some looping and shooting bullshit. Fuck, that's the best way to get smoked in the playoffs. Play your game, play it hard. Let these guys know who you are. It's about you, not about them. You just do your own thing and worry about yourself, and it should take care of itself.
I think if you're Ryan Reeves, right away you got to instill there's going to be no funny business. I mean, the Florida Panthers, it's no secret, widely regarded as one of the dirtier, nastier teams in the league. And they're obviously going to try to take some liberties. Like, there's no doubt about it. And I think when you look at guys like Matthews and Nylander and Marner and Tavares, like, Florida's going to play them heavy. I think Ryan Reeves, like, this is why he brought this guy in for games like this, where both sides are going to be throwing shots and, trying to prove a point against each other and getting set if it potentially play each other in the first round. So I think it's up to Ryan Reeves early on to say there's going to be no funny bullshit tonight, man. I'm fascinated to see the brand that the Panthers bring to this game. Like, are they dragging in scrums every whistle? Like, is it going to is it going to be that playoff style? Are they taking that extra shot at Matthews? Like, it's going to be interesting. And then the response on top of that's going to be interesting from the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, are they going to play possum and just kind of not really worry about it right now? Or are they going to kind of fire him up?
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things you got to worry about it being Ryan Reeves is, the Florida Panthers just have a gamut of the same type of guy. That's what makes them really strong in the playoffs, is they're all on the same page. And any one of the guys, whether it be Bennett, Chuck, or Cousins, or any of these guys can act a certain way and stir the pot, where if Ryan Reeves goes out there, it's very easy for him to take penalties and for him to get goaded into bad situations. And he's going to stand out like a sore thumb in those scrums. So you can't be, the aggressor, and you can't retaliate overly. You got to be smart about it. And I think he is pretty smart about that. But if he lets his emotions get away with them, they'll goad him into penalties. And if he tries to play Mr. Tough Guy, we're not putting up with any funny business, and then goes to the penalty box and they bury on the power play, it's going to look pretty bad. So he's got to be careful about that 100%. And like you said, I think it's more of a team toughness mentality. It can't just be Ryan Reeves patrolling out there. No one's going to fight him. They're going to laugh at him and keep playing their game and goad him into playoffs or into penalties. But if everyone's doing it at the same time, and Revo, don't react to the Florida Panthers, set your own tone, run them through the goddamn boards, chase them down and bury them, stand tall right in front, brush up against their goalie in an innocent way and get them off their game, make them come and take penalties on you, right? Dictate the game. Don't put your mind on, well, they're going to be doing all these bad things and I'm going to stand up and roar and say, no way, mister, because it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. You're going to take penalties. It's got to be a team mentality, which I think they have addressed this year. And if they're all playing on the same wavelength, then they can be the one dictating the style of play.
Message sending season. You love to see it. It's the penultimate game of the regular season for the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Leafs and the Panthers again. Don't forget what's at stake tonight between Boston and the Ottawa Senators, and also the Florida and the Maple Leafs game. So I'll be going back and forth on that front. In terms of bets, I'll be playing Auston Matthews anytime goal, the Nylander shot prop. I think he knows he's in a slump, needs to break out of this thing one way or another. I think there's a variety of different ways you can tackle it, but for the most part, I'm going to sit back and relax and just watch. Any bets you like specifically tonight?
I haven't looked at what the value is on Matthews getting one. He's
minus 130.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah,
I kind of think it's just tough. It's very interesting. I'm going to be watching, pretty interested, because I want to see what the tempo of this game is like. Like, what attitude is each team presenting right now? They do it strategically. I mean, you look at Edmonton's playing the fucking Sharks last night. Like, how is that for you? Where we got to do,
was a bloodbath.
Tampa and Florida the last couple of games. It's strategically set up, and it's always interesting to see, like last year, the game we were at, like, what's going to happen here and how's this going to look and whose attitude is going to shine through. And I'm just interested to see that. So I don't have a whole lot of bets. It's a weird time. It's kind of silly season, but we will see. We will see.
One thing is for sure, we'll be back tomorrow to break it all down, and we'll also preview game 82 of the season on the road against Tampa. You talk about wild and chaotic. Who knows what's going to happen in the watered-down version of another rival battle between the Leafs and the Lightning coming up on Wednesday. So that's coming up on Wednesday's show. We'll recap this one. We'll talk more in depthly about Toronto's first round opponent, whether it's Boston or the Florida Panthers. So we'll talk tomorrow, Rosie.
Yeah, sounds good. See you there.
That's Jay Rosehill. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys were fantastic. A lot of people thinking that Ryan Reeves will chip in an assist on Auston Matthews' 70th goal tonight. So look out for that. I'd love to see Revo take a couple shifts with Matthews, eh?
That'd be big value. Throwing a little sprinkle on that. Here we go. Why not?
I don't even think you can bet on a Ryan Reeves assist, man. Like they need to implicate some wild shit in terms of betting. So we're looking forward to that one at the Leafs Nation 401. Subscribe, hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcasts. And again, visit LeafsNation.com for the very latest. Many thanks to producer Vic as well. We'll be back on Wednesday. By the way, we're catching up with Ray Ferraro later on today. I think we're going to play that interview tomorrow, get his thoughts. Unfortunately, we're not really going to ask him about the series in general because we're doing it when we don't know the opponent, but we're just going to get his general thoughts on how he feels about this Maple Leafs team coming up. So that's coming up on tomorrow's show. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.